Hey creeps, it's Cameron Chaney, author of Autumn Crow, and welcome back to Library Macabre. Today we're going to be looking at some paperbacks from hell, some vintage horror paperbacks from my collection. I've already done part 1, 2, and 3 of my collection. If you haven't seen those videos, I'm going to link a playlist down below in the graveyard, but don't go anywhere. You don't have to watch those videos before you watch this one. Go ahead and finish watching this one. It's just paperback book covers, so you don't really need to see the other ones in order to enjoy this. These are some of my favorite videos to film. I love going through my collection and looking at my books because I often find books that I forgot I even have. So it's really fun doing these videos and getting to kind of rediscover my own collection. So, creeps, grab yourself a snack, maybe a cup of coffee, and chill the F out because we're going to look at some books. What's there to worry about when there are books to look at? Right? Sounds about right. All right, cool. Glad we had this talk. Let's do it. As I've said in past bookshelf tours, I have all of my horror paperbacks organized by the author's last name, so they're in alphabetical order. I've already done half of the J's, and that's where I left off. In the last video, I think I showed all of my Ruby Jean Jensen books. So now we're continuing on with the J's. So here I have a couple of books by K.W. Jeter. So this one is called Soul Eater, and we also have Dark Keeper. It is Dark Seeker. These are both published by Tor, and they are from the 80s. Next we have The Predator by Anthony John. The tagline on this is, "He is hungry, and you are his prey." That's one of the things I love most about these books are the taglines. Next up, this isn't actually a vintage book, it's just a mass market paperback, so I threw it on with my vintage paperback books because it just fits. It's the same size. So here we have In the River. This is by Jeremy Robert Johnson. This one's actually signed by the author, and he actually did a nice long note for me here. It says, "This special robot edition of In the River is number 2 of 3 winning copies from the 2019 Nightworms contest giveaway. Cheers, Robert, aka Robot Johnson." I won this in a Nightworms giveaway, and I was so happy because this is one of a kind, or 3 of a kind, because he signed 3 different books. But just awesome. Love it. This next one is published by Zebra, and it's not actually categorized as a horror novel. It's categorized as suspense, but I put it in with the horror section anyway. So here we have Deadly Secret by Martha Johnson. And I just love the covers on these Zebra suspense books. They're just very atmospheric, very moody and spooky. All right, so here are all of the books that I was most excited to show you today. I have next my William W. Johnstone books, and these just have some of the best covers ever. So first off, we're starting with one of his earliest books. This one is called A Crying Shame. It's a simple cover, but really, really good. Of course, his covers just get wackier and wackier as they go. Next up is The Nursery. Again, pretty tame, but it's a very rare book, so I'm glad to have this. Now we're getting into his Devil series. So we have The Devil's Heart. Of course, I'm missing the first book in the series, which is called The Devil's Kiss. Still looking for that, but I'll find it eventually. Here's the third book, The Devil's Touch. The Devil's Cat. Now this one is awesome. Look at that holographic cover. That is so freaking cool. Love it. So good. And I'm glad to have really nice copies of most of his books. The 5th book in the Devil series, The Devil's Laughter, super creepy clown guy. These next 2 books aren't actually part of his Devil series. I think they're mostly just like loosely connected. I haven't actually read these, so I don't know for sure. But from what I hear, this actually references his Devil series. So we have Cat's Cradle and Cat's Eye. Ludicrous cover art. It's so good. I live for these books. Next we have Wolfsbane. This is the 2nd edition with the skeleton artwork. There is another edition published by Zebra Books that I don't own yet, but I would like to get it eventually. Same goes for this one. This is the 2nd edition of The Uninvited, but there is another edition that I would like to get. Next is Sweet Dreams by William W. Johnstone. Like I said, the covers get more and more ludicrous as they go, and I just freaking love it. It's so good. Next we have Rocking Horse, which this copy is far more beat up than my other ones, but I'm still just glad to have a copy of this book. I'm really excited to read it. Next we have Jack in the Box. Now this copy is also not in the best shape. There's like some wear on the cover and the back isn't too good. At least there's no spine creases though. Baby Grand by William W. Johnstone and Joseph O. Keene. This has always been one of my favorite covers. Lots of atmosphere. I just love how he's hunched over that piano. And then the back is really cool as well. We have some piano keys. Now this is the one that I hear the most about, and I've actually not read this yet because I'm so scared of ruining my copy. But we have Toy Cemetery, which I hear is just bonkers in every way. And I'm really excited to dig into this one and see what it's all about. Another one of my favorite covers, we have Carnival. And I just love books having to do with carnivals, so I'm excited to read this, and I think that's the reason why I like the cover so much. Here we have another rough copy. This one is Sandman by William W. Johnstone. Another one that I would like to read very soon. Darkly the Thunder. That is the most late 80s, early 90s cover I have ever seen in my life. It's so good. I love the pink and the teal blue. Watchers in the Woods. Them, which I believe is about aliens. Next up, we have Bats. And I don't really know what this one's about, honestly. I could take a guess and say that it's about bats, but honestly, it's a zebra book, so who really knows? More William W. Johnstone. We have Night Mask. This one's more of a serial killer kind of book. And finishing up with the Johnstone books, we have our last two. We have Rockabilly Limbo and Rockabilly Hell. I think this is actually the first book. I've not actually read these. In fact, I've not actually read any of Johnstone's work. I'm still having to go back and read some. I think if I were to start with any of them, I would probably start with Toy Cemetery, just because that's the one I hear about the most. Next up is Where's Mommy Now? This one is by Rochelle Major Rich, I think. This is another one of those suspense titles. I really love that cover art. Actually, this cover art is by Tim Jacobus, who did the Goosebumps books. I recognized this artwork as soon as I got this home after I bought it at the bookstore, because I'm just so familiar with Tim Jacobus's work. He does some good stuff. Moving away from the zebra books, we have a leisure title. This one's called Tarot Town by Bruce Jones. Fantastic cover art. It's very autumnal and very orange. I love it. Blood Secrets by Craig Jones. I think this is like a haunted house story. A shocking tale of marriage destroyed by doubt, or a closely knit family ravaged by jealousy and suspicion. So actually, no, not a haunted house book. Next, I have some Amityville horror books, and you're probably like, Cameron, why aren't those in the nonfiction section? Do some research, buddy. Here we have Amityville Horror 2. The horror continues. Fantastic step back artwork in there. Next is Amityville, The Evil Escapes. Look at that. Stunning. Stunning. Amityville, The Final Chapter, which sadly doesn't have anything extra inside. Also by John G. Jones, we have The Supernatural, which has some step back art. Nothing too crazy. Another zebra book. This one is called Without Mercy by Leonard Jordan. The Lucifer Child by Shelley Katz. This one actually still has the little advertisement in the middle for some other books. There are quite a few horror books listed. There's The Legacy. I see The Island by Peter Benchley. Visions of Terror by William Katz. Christmas Babies. This one is by Christopher Keene and William D. Black, MD. So this is a Paperbacks from Hell book, and I haven't actually read this, but Grady Hendrix totally turned me off of reading this book because it doesn't actually take place at Christmas time. It takes place in the summer in Tampa. So there's no Christmas feels to be had. Otherwise, I would really want to read this book. Next, we have a couple of newer editions. So we have Ghoul by Brian Keene and Shades by Brian Keene and Jeff Cooper. These were both released by Poltergeist Press, who is now defunct. If you're not on social media, you probably didn't see the whole scandal with this publisher. Of course, that's nothing involving these authors at all. It was just the publisher. So I still hung on to these just because it's Brian Keene. Next, I have a few books by Ed Kelleher and Harriet Vidal. First off, we have Madonna, which has such a good cover. The Breeder. The School, another great cover. The Spell, And lastly, Animus, which has a really cool cover as well. Has that whole child's play kind of thing going on, even though I don't think this has anything to do with the killer doll. Next, I have a couple books by Ronald Kelly. Here is Fear, Bloodkin, Off Season by Jack Ketchum, She Wakes by Jack Ketchum, The Spawn by L.J. Key. Very cool gothic cover. Here we have a title from Tor. This one is called Blood Hunt by Lee Kellogg. You would think this is like a step back art, but there actually isn't anything there. Next is Near Death by Nancy Kilpatrick. I don't like this cover, but at the same time I couldn't resist buying it because it is so bad. Yeah, there you go. I never said I have good taste. Next we have a gothic romance. This one is called The Phantom Flame of Windhouse. Super atmospheric cover. I really want to collect more gothic romance books because I don't know, I think they're just a mood, you know? And this one still has an advertisement for cigarettes in the middle. Obviously it was a very different time. Next we have a UK horror paperback, and that is Witch Beast by Bernard King. I don't have a whole lot of UK editions, but man, they have amazing covers. Next is Night Vision. This one is by Frank King. And speaking of King, we're about to get into my Stephen King paperbacks. I do have more King paperbacks than what you're gonna see. They're off in a box somewhere, and the only reason for that is because I needed more room on my shelves for other books. I already have an entire shelf of Stephen King hardcovers over there, so I have plenty of King displayed as it is, so I put some of my like paperback duplicates in a box. But I did keep some of the other older books on the shelf. So here we have Carrie, of course, Salem's Lot, The Shining. A lot of these are the ones that I've had since I was a kid. I remember going to the little secondhand bookstore in town run by this little old lady. The bookstore wound up closing down, unfortunately, a couple of years after I bought these. I don't know, I always wonder about that lady, whatever happened to her. I hope she's still around. Here we have The Dead Zone. Cujo, this is the first edition paperback. The first paperback printing of The Dark Tower, The Gunslinger. Very nice copy of this one. First paperback printing of Christine. First paperback of Pet Sematary. I recently found this at a Second and Charles for like $1.50. It was crazy. It's in great shape. First paperback printing of Thinner. Here's another one that I recently found at a Half Price Books for only $3. This is the first paperback printing of It. It's in great condition. I have the hardcover, not a first edition, it's a book club edition. And I used to have a paperback of this, the same exact one actually, that I bought from that same bookstore as a kid, but mine was just falling apart, like I had to tape the cover on and everything. This one though, very nice. The Wastelands, the third book of The Dark Tower. And then last for the Stephen King books, I have all of the Green Mile serialized little novellas. I do have a tour of all of my Stephen King hardcovers, so if you want to see that, I will link it up there somewhere. Hellcat by Amanda Kingsley. This one's from Leisure. Next, I have quite a few books by James Kisner. He wrote under a couple different pseudonyms. So here we have one that he wrote under Martin James. This one is called Zombie House. Earth Blood, which he wrote under James Kisner. The Forever Children, which he wrote under Eric Flaunders. Another Eric Flaunders is Nightblood, vampire novel. And under James Kisner, he wrote Tower of Evil. This one's actually published by Leisure. The Shelter by Mary Kitteridge and Kevin O'Donnell Jr. Kind of forgot that I even had this one. All right, so this is about somebody named Meadberry who, as long as they're alive, the streets of this city remain clean and free of crime. But I'm guessing Meadberry is not as nice as they seem. So I guess they're out to kill this person, even if it means that the whole city dies along with her. Next is Don't Say a Word by Andrew Clevin. This was actually turned into a movie with Brittany Murphy, I believe. Another book by Andrew Clevin. This one is called The Animal Hour, and I would really like to read this come Halloween time. This is actually a Halloween-based book. The Ancestors by Robert Y. Klein. Look at that cover art. That is so good. Campfire Story, another one by Robert Y. Klein. Just look at that artwork, man. So nostalgic. It makes me want to just camp out by a fire and read this book. Classic. We have The Sentinel, which has that amazing step back cover art. Of course, mine's kind of coming undone, so I could probably put a little glue on the edge and glue it back in. Overall, it's not in bad shape. By the same author, we have Monster, a Loch Ness Tale. Some step back artwork in there as well. Next is The Mask by Owen West, aka Dean Koontz. The Key to Midnight by Lee Nichols, aka Dean Koontz. The Eyes of Darkness, also by Lee Nichols. And again, we have amazing step back cover art. With an introduction by Dean Koontz, here is The Boneyard, an anthology. Book 5 in Dean Koontz's Frankenstein series, The Dead Town. Eye of the Devil, look at that. That is some killer artwork. Demon's Fright, this is one of my favorite covers. Look at that, so good. So freaking good. So this is obviously a zebra book and is by Penelope Banca Krebs, or Banca Krebs, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. And by the same author, here is Carnivores. I believe those are the only 2 horror books that she ever wrote. Ooh, gotta get a drink. Button Bright by Michael Kurland, super spooky cover. Thirst, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the author's name. I've tried before and it was totally wrong, so I won't even attempt it this time, but this is from Leisure Books. By Michael Lamo, we have Dead Souls. Edited by Joe R. Lansdale, we have Razor Saddles. Fantastic cover art, and this is an anthology of stories that are all cowpunk horror. From Popular Library, we have 2 books by Jan Laura. We have Limbo and Soul Catchers. Here's one by R. Carl Largan. I was recently told how to pronounce that in a video and I've already forgotten. It was like Pagoda or something. I don't know. It's got some cool artwork though. You can tell me again how to pronounce it down below in the comments and I will forget again. Here is another book by the same author. This one is called The Witch of Sixkill. And by the same author, The Lake. Really fun cover. Next I have a few books by Andrew Lawrence. This one is called The Black Hotel. Ouija. Pretty safe to say what this book's about. Catacomb. And the first book in the Blood of Nostradamus trilogy, here is The Premonition. Oh, here's another Stephen King book. This one is the second book of the Dark Tower, The Drawing of the Three. Probably my favorite of the Dark Tower books that I've read, but I've only read the first 3. This one's classic. This one is so good. The Foundling. This one is by Frank Loria. Just look at that. That's just amazing. Just so good. I haven't read this, but I really wanted to read this. Like, obviously it's a killer kid book. I hope it's as ludicrous as this cover is. Probably not, but man, that is just like, I want to get a print of this and hang it on my wall. Ghost Train by Stephen Laws. Spectre by Stephen Laws. I've heard that this one's really good. And by the same author, we have Ferocity, which is obviously a much newer book. Now we're getting into my Richard Lehman books. So we have The Beast House. This one's published by Paperbacks. Another one of my favorite covers, we have Night Show. So good, man. And I love any books having to do with cinemas. So like anything like Demons or Popcorn, some of my favorite movies. I love books that have to do with like creatures attacking people in cinemas or people being trapped in movie theaters. They're just a lot of fun. The story could go anywhere, and I think my love of cinema-based horror, it all comes from that Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, The Tale of the Midnight Madness, where the vampire comes out of the screen. I think that's the reason why I love cinema-based horror stories so much. Next is Tread Softly by Richard Lehman, Resurrection Dreams by Richard Lehman, and The Stake by Lehman. By Gene Lazuda, we have Bleeder. I think I have another one of his books on the way. Desolation by Tim Levin. The Everlasting by Tim Levin. This one looks interesting. We have Water Witch by Deborah LeBlanc. Has that whole like Southern Gothic, New Orleans kind of vibe. Kind of reminds me of that movie The Gift with Cate Blanchett, which is so good. If you haven't seen The Gift, definitely look it up. It's an amazing movie. Endless Fear by Adrian Lee. This is another zebra suspense book with cover art by Tim Jacobus, who did the Goosebumps books. Now we're getting into my Edward Lee books. I don't have too many of his books, but I do have another one on the way. I think I have a copy of Succubus on the way. But here we have Nightbait, which he wrote under the name Philip Straker. And then under his own name, Edward Lee, we have Ghouls, which is another one of my favorite covers. I just love the atmosphere here. The Chosen, Creakers, so good. It reminds me of Children of the Corn. He also wrote this book here called Sacrifice under the name Richard Kinnan. Sorry, that's Kinnian. And then here we have House Infernal by Edward Lee. One by One by Linda Lee. The Keeper by Robert D. Lee. And I heard once that this book was like impossible to find, but I have seen some copies listed on Amazon in recent months, so you might actually be able to find this for a decent price. Into the Pit by Warner Lee. It's Loose, also by Warner Lee. Conjure Wife by Fritz Lieber. Very spooky step back art. By Brooke Lemus, we have The Eighth Day, which obviously is about evil kids. And by Richard Lewis, we have The Spiders. And I actually have a whole bunch of UK edition Richard Lewis books on the way. I don't know when they're gonna get here. I've actually been waiting on them for a while, but one of these days, I'm gonna have a whole bunch of them, and I'm so excited to add them to my collection. But there's a really cruddy copy of the US edition. And I think I'm gonna end this part of my Vintage Horror Bookshelf tour right here. Don't worry, I am barely scratching the surface. I still have so much to show you guys, it's insane. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give me a like. I would really appreciate it, as well as leaving a comment down below. Those are two totally free ways to support my channel. They both feed the algorithm gods, and it gets my channel in front of more people, which of course helps me to keep going and keep growing. Even if you leave a comment just saying, hey creep, that also really helps. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode of Library Macabre. Later, creeps.